Welcome back to another episode of the Goonery. We're here to break down 2023 NFL Draft, and the both of us on this show are over the moon. We're excited. Ryan Poles did it again, Brandon.
I mean, we did a mock draft the last show that we did, and we were just addressing the needs that we thought the Bears had. Now, granted, they didn't address every need, I guess you could say, from every Chicago Bears fan's perspective, center and edge. I'll get to that in the show, but I think what the quality of players and where they got said players, you cannot be upset with this draft. And I feel like once you get into the mode of doing what I've been doing for the past 2 months and just doing just mock draft after mock draft, you get yourself a little bit disappointed that they didn't address every spot on the roster, which granted, it's not possible in the draft. It's really all a matter of where you fall and what players fall to you. And that's just the way it goes. And you really can't be upset with some of the things that happen. You don't want to do the whole Ryan Pace thing and trade up and put yourself in a position where you have to keep trading back every year because you don't have those picks to trade up or just have any type of maneuvering going on. So I mean, it was great considering the circumstances, all the picks that we had and where we were on the board and all the people that dropped. And yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too much to complain about.
Yeah, and so I mean, the first thing I want to talk about, obviously, is the first round pick, trading back one spot to draft John outright. And you saw a lot of people online all up in arms that they traded back one spot to pass up on Jalen Carter. And the way I look at that, it's been very clear since day one that Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are very character driven in their personnel decisions. And there has been some questions and concerns about Jalen Carter's off the field behavior, his love for the game of football. I mean, he came to his pro day out of shape. Is that the type of guy that fits in this culture? Instead, they trade back one spot. They know they're not taking Jalen Carter. They know for a fact making that trade that the Eagles are not going to take Darnell Wright there, right? You only make that trade if you are 100% certain Darnell Wright is not being picked. They locked up who a lot of people are saying can and potentially will be the best overall player in this draft class with Darnell Wright. Darnell Wright is the same guy who shut down Jalen Carter, who shut down Will Anderson, allowed 0 sacks in the SEC last year, playing right tackle for Tennessee. We both picked him in our mocks. We both thought it was realistic. It was our target. Justin Fields is over the moon. And I don't know the last time I've genuinely liked a Chicago Bears draft pick this much.
I want to hit on 2 points. And I think people are a little confused about why the Bears traded back only one spot to get Darnell Wright and forego get Jalen Carter. And when it boils down to it, it's just picks. Let's just get another pick.
Yeah.
That's it. It's nothing more, nothing less. You just get another pick. But I want Bears fans to be just steady on one thing, because let's just say that they did take Jalen Carter with the first pick at number 9. What would be the discourse online? They passed on another lineman to get a defensive tackle that has character issues and came overweight to pro day. So we're going to forego a couple of tackles that was on the board because Paris Johnson was gone at that point. Darnell Wright was on the board. Peter Skoronski was on the board. Those were the main 2 guys that everybody was talking about. You mean to tell me that I get it. Jalen Carter could end up being a Pro Bowler for the rest of his career. I completely understand.
And he has
I get the frustration.
100%.
Because let's be honest, me and you, we talked draft night, and we said, "Oh my God, they did not get Jalen Carter. Why did we trade back and to not get him? This was the guy that we were supposed to get if we would have stayed at number 1 or possibly went to 2 or 3. That was the guy. But the fact of the matter is, there was such a glaring issue at that right tackle position.
Mhm.
It was such a cycle of players that was going through that position that they had no type of continuity on that line.
Nope.
So you get a guy that, I'm gonna be honest with you, I watched a lot of film on Darnell Wright. I can't tell you how many bad reps I saw because there wasn't many.
Mhm.
And that is the most beautiful thing about this pick. And it's crazy because he could be considered a fast riser, but then you just wonder why. Why was he a fast riser? This was a guy that, like you said, he dominated SEC competition, which is arguably one of the best conferences in football, maybe even the best to a lot of people's eyes.
Mhm.
And he shut that conference down.
Yep.
The fact that he wasn't highly regarded,
Makes
before
no
this
sense to me.
draft process,
No
it's
sense.
like, what are people actually paying attention to? It's actually crazy. But I'm extremely happy with this pick. The more I watch film on him, I'm just like, man, I know we had Jason Peters when he was over the moon at 40 years old, but this could be Jason Peters prime all over
Yep.
again that
Yep.
we're gonna get, and that's
A-
exciting to see.
And
And you watch a lot of football, Jason Peters is a dog.
that's a
He's
great
he's
comparison.
anchor on that offensive line for the Eagles, and you can't go wrong with that.
That is a great comparison. So you said watching film, you had not seen any, couldn't remember any bad plays from him. Well, guess what? On 388 designed rushes in 2022, Darnell Wright had 0 blown blocks.
I mean,
I
there you go.
I
There you
mean,
go.
you're literally the lowest blown block percentage, rush and pass in the SEC last year, with 0.7% on all plays last year, rushing and passing. If that guy is playing left tackle at Tennessee instead of right tackle, he's the first overall pick in this draft.
1000%.
The Bears stay right where they're at 1 and take him without a question.
Absolutely. And you can't even be mad at it.
No,
You
you can't
can't.
be mad at it. Darnell Wright is a guy who, just what I've seen, embodies exactly what Eberflus and Poles are trying to build here. Everything you've seen from him post draft and in his press conferences, his media releases, you have to love him. I mean, he's kind of got that same attitude as Tevin Jenkins, where he says
Yeah.
someone hits Justin Fields late, guess what? We're finding him in the parking lot. And that's the
Yep.
meatball in me, but that is the attitude I love to see out of my offensive lineman. And
Absolutely.
Justin Fields is over the moon about this pick. And guess what? Anyone still doubting the fact that Justin Fields is the guy can just please shove it. Please.
I'm at a point where if I hear any
I
discourse,
just laugh.
because
I laugh.
I think his name was Hub Arkush. Even after the draft, he was still questioning if he's the guy or not. And it's like they went through this whole draft process. They got him an offensive tackle. They got him a running back who's most likely to be a starter by mid-season, and a guy who could very well replace Darnell Mooney well, not when, but if he decides to not sign back with the Bears. I mean, what are we talking about here? But we're gonna get to that, down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, let's just keep moving through the draft here. It was very clear what they wanted to do. They wanted to build up front on both sides of the football. I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about defense tackles we picked in second and third round. I knew Dexter. I know he's an athletic freak. The numbers aren't eye popping at Florida, but he's a specimen. 6'6", 310, and he ran a sub 5, a sub 4.9 40. That's unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unheard of. I don't know what to expect out of him this year, but I'm excited just on the athleticism alone.
So I'm going to talk about both tackles, Javon Dexter Sr. and Zach Pickens, and just like you, I didn't know much about them, but of course, like through the beauty of following pages on Twitter that show these prospects, their guys, and you get to see what they're capable of. So I'm going to start with Dexter first. One thing that stood out to me is that he's very strong. He's very strong and very, very violent with his hands, and that's a trait that him and Pickens both have, and that's a good thing. The one thing I will say about Dexter, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, when the ball is snapped, his get off is extremely, extremely slow.
I have noticed that.
And obviously, that's not what you want. However, the one thing I will say about these two picks is that they're projects. Let's
Yep.
be honest. They're projects because they are banking on the fact that they are athletic freaks, and that's exactly what they want on this football team.
Hmm.
They just need the fine tuning from this coaching staff, and they're going to get them right. And while I do think that will be the case, I look at both Javon Dexter and I look at both and Zach Pickens as well. Zach Pickens, to me, if you put him anywhere on the line,
He will be fine. Yep.
he'll be good because he's a little lesser size than Javon
Hmm.
Dexter, but I think that's a good thing because if you have a guy who's just he's athletic, but he's strong as hell. And I know I said Dexter has violent heads. Zach Pickett's heads are even more violent. It's impressive to see. But if you can tap that potential with him be as athletic as it is, and even the attitude, I don't know if you saw his his post draft interview that he had, but he talked about he gets angry on a football field, like any like the littlest things. I'm saying this verbatim. He didn't say this, but like
No,
he
yeah.
gets angry on the football field, and that's exactly what you want. And I see him with a higher ceiling than Dexter, but one thing I will say about both players, I want Bears fans to be as patient as possible.
Hmm.
They're not going to be guys that's going to be on the line 3 downs or even 2 downs.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a rotation because at the end of the day, the Bears did make some moves to sign some guys. So they can have that rotation.
Hmm.
So my advice is to give them time because they're not going to be contributors right away, and that's completely fine. If you want them to be as good as possible, you give them time to fine tune their skills, and you got to trust what this front office actually wants because those guys got drafted for a reason. All these guys got drafted for a reason. So I think those two are the most you're supposed to be patient with.
Yeah. So then, I mean, just the other second round pick, 56 overall, Tyreek Stevenson, corner out of Miami. A guy who both of us liked a lot. We both, in our mock draft, we wanted him. That's a guy who's going to come in and start day one.
1000%.
If he does not start day one, I, I will be genuinely surprised. I mean, he's physical. He can play the outside corner. He he's just he's gonna be really fucking good. I think, man. Like just plain and simple, he's going to be a good fit on this team.
So it's funny because me and you both drafted him and I mock draft that we did. I put him in a lot of my mock drafts and I started doing more research about him. And one thing that people said was his weakness was his he's good at man coverage. We just don't know about zone coverage.
Playing zone coverage.
Now, one thing I did see a lot last season, and this is probably due to a lack of talent all over the defense, mostly on the defensive line, but the Bears did not play a lot of man. They played a lot of zone, and and obviously, again, I think it has a lot to do with the talent or lack thereof on the
Mhm.
defense. Will this open up an opportunity for Tyreek Stevenson to play more man coverage, or even anybody for that matter?
Yeah.
Because if we're gonna analyze this, I think Kyler Gordon was way more better suited to be a press man cover
Mhm.
quarterback. Jalen Johnson can play both, so that's a good thing. So I wonder if we're going to go straight scheme fit, will that be a good thing for Stevenson? And it's going to be, I think that's going to be a learning curve for him. But it also really does matter of how much this defensive line has actually improved, and then we're going to see everything play out accordingly.
So let's get into that a little bit. Do you see Eberflus in year two making the adjustments to adjust his system to fit the personnel more, or do you think he is going to kind of stay in his ways and this is our system? If you can't play in it, you won't be here anymore. Like what do you kind of see happening?
I'm very 50-50 on that because if you look at prior teams that he coached with the Colts, he was very zone heavy.
Hmm.
And obviously it wasn't from a lack of talent because the defense of the Colts in his tenure were pretty damn good. So I wonder if there will be a mix up in terms of, defensive schemes, but I think they have to explore it. I mean, I
Yeah.
do think that this obviously is going to come under the conditions that the defensive line is improved, and I think they will be improved because look at the linebacking core. I mean,
Oh,
they're drastically improved from from last season's, and you don't have the same talent on the defensive line you've added. So it can't get much worse than last year. So I'm still 50-50 on it because of his past experiences coaching defenses, but it should be something different considering the athletes you now have on the field. Even though, if I'm not mistaken, I think Chris Ballard and Ryan Poles kind of have the same ideology when it comes to who they want on their team because they worked together when they was with the Chiefs.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if that's going to play a factor, but I hope there is a different mix up of things that does come to play with this defense.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to dive into every single pick here because obviously we don't have the knowledge to break down all these. But I want to get into the up until about the fifth round because I
Okay.
think these next three picks here, I think Ryan Poles hit it out of the park.
Oh yes.
I mean, Roshan Johnson, running back out of Texas. Everyone says, "Oh, he was Bijan Robinson's backup. He couldn't even he wasn't even a starter in college. Whatever." I mean, he was legitimately a quarterback up until like 2, 3 years ago. I,
Yeah,
I, I, and it's not like Bijan Robinson is some slouch either.
exactly.
he was the eighth.
I
He was
mean,
the eighth overall pick. he was
come
the
on.
eighth overall pick, and I have a feeling that he's going to be very successful here, just because he doesn't have to come in and try, and he's not going to be forced to play a heavy amount of downs right out of the gate. They signed down to Foreman. They have, I mean, they have Khalil Herbert. There's a lot of options here, and I think eventually his talent is going to win out, and he'll probably take over a starting job here. But I love the way he runs the football.
Yes.
He,
And oh god.
no, I was just going to say he can catch the football, but he'll run it right between the tackles and run your ass right over. Like have no
Mhm.
hesitation lowering the shoulder. He so the stat that stood out to me the most when I was reading about him, he on broken tackles after contact averaged almost 4 yards a carry per rush after contact last year.
Yeah.
The guy who just keeps his legs moving. And hate to say it, on an offensive line that is still very young and still developing, he's going to be getting hit early and often.
Oh yeah.
So that I know that's Big 12 defenses he's running through, but the talent and the physicality is there, and I think it's going to translate to the NFL level.
For those people that have said that he is Bijan's backup and whatnot, you name me a backup running back that gets drafted in the fourth round, and I'll name you somebody that I won't name you many people. I mean, let's be honest here. This was one of my favorite picks of the draft because if I love college football for the chaos it brings. There's nothing more chaotic than a Texas football game. So obviously, when you watch a lot of Texas football, you know you're enamored with Bijan Robinson, but then you see this guy number two. I'm just like, wait, where's number five? Why is number five not playing? It's because
Yep.
it's Roshan Johnson, and he's doing exactly what Bijan Robinson is doing too. And one thing that I have consistently seen over the weekend. Roshan Johnson, if he was on another school, he would start on almost every single school
Yep.
possible. He
Mm-hmm.
is that good, and his talent demanded him being split carries with Bijan Robinson. So let's get that clear. This guy, to me, is going to be so loved by Bears fans because, like you said, his physicality just stands out on tape, and how he runs the ball. He is so he and never mind the physicality. He's sneaky athletic. He's
Yeah. Yeah.
sneaky athletic. So I I'm in love with this pick, and I thought that this was going to be a draft where the Bears were going to wait to the later rounds to get a running back, but thank God they did it because having this guy on your team is going to make such a big difference. And one thing I will say, I know they signed Travis Homer for pass blocking purposes. He may not even have a spot because Roshan Johnson can do everything. And
Yep.
it is very, very possible the Bears drafted a 3-down running back, and that is so
Yeah.
exciting
I
to me.
mean, and he does everything well. He
Yeah.
can pass block. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can play special teams. He'll run between the tackles. And my favorite thing about this pick, though, is the lack of tread on the tires.
Yes.
Because he was behind Bijan Robinson, those legs are so incredibly fresh still.
Yeah.
He didn't run the ball 1,000 times in college. I mean, his legs they're fresh, man. And
Yeah.
that's gonna buy him a few years, arguably.
Yeah, definitely.
It's an interesting pick. Some people call it a reach. I love it.
Every pick is a reach for fans.
Oh, of course, of course. So next pick here, 4th round, Tyler Scott. Essentially, he is the Darnell Mooney replacement. That's what this comes down to, I think. And I've watched a lot of Cincinnati football the last few years. I've loved watching those teams, and he's a guy who can take the top off of defense, and he did it consistently at Cincy. And I don't think Mooney has consistently been able to do that. So I'm interested to see how Tyler Scott kind of fits in here this year, especially with Mooney still being here. The size, it does worry me a little bit. I mean, he is small, but he's gonna be a slot guy. I mean, he's not gonna be like Mooney where he can line up outside. This is going to solely be a guy you're gonna put in the slot, and you're gonna have DJ Moore and Chase Claypool out wide. Also, we need to touch on that real quick before we move on.
Okay.
Chase Claypool, I was not against that trade when it happened. I was not happy, but I understood it. I understood it at the time. Man, did that hurt seeing the 32nd pick and the players that were available there, knowing that, oh, okay, that's Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
That really hurt.
Understandably so. And again, I want to give him a fair chance. And that's why, like, it did hurt, but I'm just like, you know what? He's gonna have a lot of opportunities to make it right this year, a whole lot. But to the Tyler Scott pick, again, one of my favorite picks of the draft. I mean, the 4th round was just like I would just smile from ear to ear, like from the 4th round. And one thing that going into this draft process, I have consistently said there was one player that specifically was my favorite player in the draft, and his name is Zay Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not as athletic as Zay Flowers. He's not gonna wow you with the moves he can make after the catch like Zay Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
But he's pretty damn close to it. It's pretty damn close.
No, I mean he is. Yeah, I mean, he runs a 4.4. You have to love that. And the thing I don't like though is a wide receiver. I read an article, I forgot where I read it from. He describes his number one trait as a receiver as his speed. I don't know why, but that bothers me for some reason. I feel like with your wide receivers, you're used to hearing, oh, my hands, my route running. Like, I don't know. Him saying speed for some dumb reason just rubbed me the wrong way. But I'm still excited because I know what he was able to do at Cincy.
You want to know why it bothers you? I'm going to give you 2 reasons why it bothers you. Kevin White and Velus Jones.
Yep.
That's why it bothers you. I mean, it's a very, very legitimate complaint. I completely understand it. But this is one of those picks where you just have to trust your eyes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you're right.
Trust your eyes.
The fact that when I'll be honest, I pay attention enough to college football where I know a good amount of these names that are getting drafted if they're from a relevant school, I should say.
Right.
I saw Tyler Scott come across the screen and I was like, oh, shit. All right. Yeah. I mean, like that passes the eye test. And where do you realistically, or how much do you realistically see him playing this year on the offensive side of the football? Because they for sure is going to have a role on special teams.
I think it'll take time, but I do think he's gonna be one of those guys that's just gonna stand out. Training camp, preseason, and this it's gonna be a situation where he's gonna have to force himself to get into the lineup. And the fact of the matter is, slot's going to be a very interesting thing because Darnell Mooney is obviously going to have that lockdown. He's good enough to keep that
Oh,
position,
of course.
but I do think that they will carve out a role for Tyler Scott. And the thing is, I feel as though not only just like within the slot play, if you could use him for screens
Mhm.
and end arounds, all that good stuff.
So exactly what we drafted Velus Jones for.
Boom! There you go. There you go. Listen, if you tell me that he's gonna do the same things Baylor Jones do and Baylor Jones on the roster, I'll say fine. Just have Baylor Jones just do punt returns and kick returns. Just make sure he knows how to catch the damn ball. That's all I'm gonna ask.
Oh God, man, it's
But I will say, and granted, this is very unlikely. I hope Baylor Jones comes out to be a very serviceable pro at the least. He's not gonna be great, but serviceable, you'll take that.
no, and as long as he carves out some type of role on this team, whether it's as a special teamer, whether it's as a gadget guy on the offensive side of the football, as long as he doesn't have me ripping out my hair and yelling at the TV, muffing punts every week,
Yeah.
I'm okay with it because
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a guy you ever expected a ton from. So
Exactly.
I I am excited that they shored up the receiver room a little bit. I mean, just thinking about the difference in what this offense is going to look like this year. You're going from Justin Fields throwing to Equiminius St. Brown. I mean, Darnell Mooney, who was banged up all year, Dante Pettis. I mean, we could keep going with the shitty wide receivers here if we wanted to. And now it's going to be a top three of DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, and Chase Claypool with Tyler Scott not far behind. I mean, you add you add in Cole Kmet. You have Robert Tunyon as your tight end too. I know it's not flashy, but he's solid.
Yep.
And we already talked about Darnell Wright at right tackle. You're gonna have Johnson into the backfield now with Donta Foreman. There's a lot to like about what they're doing on the offensive side of the football right now.
You can't be not excited. And granted, I feel like after the draft, I knew this was going to happen because we're so starved. But a lot of people are saying that, oh man, because I saw a tweet that said the floor for the Bears season is 7 wins.
Oh,
Hold on now. Hold on.
Let's
Okay,
pump the brakes there.
because here's the thing: the NFC is top heavy, and when I mean top heavy, I'm talking about the Eagles, and then there's everybody else. When you talk about the teams that can compete, a lot of teams can compete in the NFC. I'm not saying it's impossible that the Bears could possibly compete for a division championship. But
No,
the floor being 7 wins is a bit much, don't we think?
oh, I would say so. And I'll be straight up. I was not someone who thought this team was going to contend for a division title, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them in if we're getting to November, December, and the Bears are still on the graphic as in the hunt. I won't be surprised.
Of
I
course.
mean, I will not be surprised because look at this division right now. You have I'm gonna go out and say it. The Lions are probably the division favorite, which is just insane to me.
Insane also because their draft was
Was
extremely
atrocious.
puzzling.
Let's touch on that real quick. So the players that the Lions drafted were not bad. Very talented players, but questionable decisions.
Yes.
I did not understand Gibbs at 12 whatsoever. I know they have since traded DeAndre Swift, but there was so much more you could have done there.
I mean, it just and they signed. I believe it was Alex Anzalone for as their linebacker, and he drafted another linebacker. And I'm just like,
and that's
what are we
not that,
doing?
and it's not that Jack Campbell was not a very good linebacker in college. I'm pretty sure he won the Buck Kiss Award, I believe. I mean, he was as good as they got at the collegiate level, but you just don't take interior linebackers and running backs in the first round nowadays, unless they're
It,
generational talent.
it was so early too. And one thing that, because I know they drafted Brian Branch. Okay, cool.
Great pick.
Who are you replacing Jeff Okuda with? Christian Gonzalez was right there.
That was the fact that he is a New England Patriot. It just Belichick
It's
is going. Belichick is going to Belichick, and I know people are saying he's lost his fastball these last couple of years, but guess what? Bill Belichick's not stupid enough to get a guy who most people projected to go top 8, I would say, and
yeah,
pass on him at 17. That was the best pick of the draft.
yeah.
Honestly, that was the best value pick of the draft.
He's up there. He's up there.
Yeah,
If you ask me, oh man, I'm not gonna lie to you. Jackson Smith and Jigba at 20 was just, it was perfect. It was
that was
so perfect.
it was a great draft for the Seahawks. It really
Yeah.
was. That's a very scary wide receiver trio, and now between JSN, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett.
That's a very scary team. I mean, all you
Yeah,
have to rely on at this point is that Geno Smith is
doesn't
not
fall off a
going
cliff.
to revert back to
Yeah,
old ways.
yeah,
But considering how the team is structured and how like together they are, after that other guy Russell Wilson left, they seem to be set up for success. So I don't know, man. They really, to me, because I know the Eagles and the Patriots and Chiefs, won the draft
yeah.
apparently, but Seattle were not far behind whatsoever.
Yeah, and let's I just want to walk through the division while we're on the topic. I mean, we said that we wouldn't be surprised to see the Bears in the hunt late in regular season. Lions most likely the favorite. After that, I mean, I think it's pretty even between the Bears, the Packers, and the Vikings, and arguably the Packers are going to be the worst team in the division.
It's very
I
possible.
mean, the boogeyman is gone. Let's just get that out there. The boogeyman is gone. The bad man is gone. He's on the East Coast now. I just I also want to laugh at the fact that they took Sean Clifford in the 4th round. Sean Clifford from Penn State was drafted in the 4th round.
Why?
I
Why?
and I also want to say Aiden O'Connell from Purdue, good college quarterback. He was serviceable. He was okay. Also picked in the 4th round. What are we doing here?
It's one of those things where we don't really realize that every team's draft board is so different.
Stetson Bennett being drafted in the 4th round.
I
We thought Stetson Bennett. We talked about the national championship. We thought he was destined to be the next All-State insurance salesman in Athens, Georgia, for the rest of his life.
and let me
He
tell
probably still
you,
will be. But
Stetson Bennett's going to start a game this season. He's absolutely going to start a game. I'm telling you this now. Stafford's leash is very, very short in terms of his career. Not getting pulled as a starting quarterback, but
injury wise, because the neck
injury wise,
of
yes.
course. Yeah.
But Stetson Bennett's going to start a game. But I mean, the quarterbacks that were being taken, you're just like, okay, sure. I mean, the 4th round, Aiden O'Connell to the Raiders just seems such a Raiders pick.
Absolutely.
It's just like I don't get it. It is what it is. But I will say this for the Packers, it is very, very interesting that they draft 2 really good receivers in this draft right after Aaron Rodgers is gone, which means that obviously they're all in on Jordan Love, but like they want to make sure that they got the young guys in place to assure that he is going to be the future quarterback, because unless they're really bad next season, Jordan Love is going to be the guy. But also, let's say if they are really bad, that quarterback class is coming out next season is actually very, very scary.
I will genuinely cry if somehow we go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to 1 year of Jordan Love and potentially Caleb Williams. I will cry. I genuinely think there will be tears down my face if that occurs. I mean,
it would be my absolute personal hell, which means I have all types of respect for Bryce Young. I hope he
Mhm.
succeeds as a quarterback, just not next season.
Yeah.
If you want it, please be the worst team in football and have someone trade with us so we have the number one pick and someone's gonna trade with us again. And it won't be the Packers. That would be beautiful, wouldn't it be? It would be I'd be just anything to avoid Caleb Williams, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, whoever is coming out. Please just don't do it. Don't do it.
That's not it. I'll be honest, that had not even been a thought that had crossed my mind yet, and I am now that is that would be hell on earth. Genuinely, that would be hell on earth. It would be like we were stuck in the show Lost, just purgatory. You're stuck in purgatory. I mean, you're just nowhere to go. Nowhere to go because I mean, as great as Justin Fields is so far, and I think he will be, no offense to my quarterback. If you offered me a swap right now, 1-for-1, Caleb Williams for Justin Fields, I'm taking Caleb Williams. I mean,
Can
I Caleb Williams is as good of a college quarterback as I've watched since
Andrew what?
I was going to say Andrew Luck or Cam Newton. I mean, different styles of play, obviously, but just like
Yeah.
in terms of just raw talent, Andrew Luck or Cam Newton, probably.
So let's get into it because we're gonna get into a territory now where the Bears don't have a contending roster on paper. They can overachieve, but they're
Mhm.
not contenders compared to like the Eagles, Cowboys,
No, that
49ers, Seahawks, or whatnot. So I ran into an article today and it was talking about what are the expectations for Justin Fields? Is this a good enough roster where you can fairly evaluate him? Because we talked about this all last offseason, that this roster, we thought was going to overachieve just a little bit, but we
Mhm.
also knew the roster wasn't going to be good. And it was going to be a fair evaluation of our quarterback. But now that things have changed to a point where he's going to have weapons to throw to, he's going to have a great backfield and improved
second
offensive
year in the
line.
system.
Like, is this a year where you say this is his make or break?
Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have to get to that point. But unfortunately, it is that year, I think, because you know what he can do as a playmaker with his legs. I mean, that is abundantly clear what he's been able to do with his legs.
Correct.
I'm giving him a pass last year because of how bad the receiving core was, how bad the offensive line was, new offensive system. You know he could sling the ball in college. There's never like I've never had a doubt in his ability to throw the football and read a defense. But if he doesn't take that next step next year and they do end up with that first overall pick, man, it's gonna they're stuck between a rock and a hard place with that decision because I don't know. And I genuinely I don't know. And I think if you still have a top 10 pick next year, you have to think about it because then you have to think about it.
I I don't want to say make or break because that sounds strong. It's strong. I'm not gonna lie. However, let's just say he's about the same as he was last season, just minus the rushing yards, because obviously he's going to want to tone that down if he's going to want to last in the league, whether it be the Bears or somebody else. It won't even be that he's being, well, it'll kind of be he's being forced out
Mhm.
because of the guys that's going to be coming out. And if the Panthers are bad, then it makes it all easier for the Bears to want to pursue further. And this goes back to all the trade rumors about Justin Fields earlier this offseason. And why I thought it never made sense is because if you have to be absolutely sure, because I think people try to say that Justin Fields wasn't all that great last year throwing the football. And he had his struggles, but I don't think there was many games where you could say he's the reason why they lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when you put all the talent around him, you get to see who you're really getting. And if
Yep.
not, you always have the next draft to draft that guy who's going to be the next franchise quarterback, and it's a damn good class next season.
Oh, it's a
So
fantastic class.
so at the end of the day, you are in a position where either you have to get your next quarterback in the future, or you build around a guy who's going to take a ginormous step in potentially a great career being a Chicago Bears quarterback, which is unheard of for a lot of Bears fans. And I
Mm-hmm.
think obviously people want to go with the latter, but I think either way, we don't want to see the Bears struggle this year under any
No.
circumstances.
No.
But if that is the case, it's not the worst thing considering what is going to be available to us after this next season.
No, I agree. So I want to ask, out of here, out of the drafts, as we're starting to kind of wrap up here, for the Bears, favorite pick, least favorite pick, and why?
Oh wow. My favorite pick is Roshan Johnson. I think Darnell Wright's too easy. It's
No,
way
I
too
agree.
easy.
I agree.
I think Roshan Johnson is so talented. His talent is going to demand him playing very, very early. You're going to see in training camp. We're gonna hear reports in training camp, and we're going to see in preseason that Roshan is definitely that guy. He's already made an impression with the scout team, the scouting department of the Chicago Bears. Like that's
Yep.
he hasn't even stepped in the building yet. Like that's impressive. So that to me is my favorite pick. I can't narrow down what my least favorite pick is because I like all these picks because I see and well at least from like 1 to 5, like
Mhm.
all the picks in between, I like the picks.
Yep.
The one thing I can't so I won't answer who was my least favorite. The one who I'm most consumed to see where he's going to play is Noah Sewell
I was gonna say the same thing.
because when you look at tape, he's a tackling machine. He's very quick to the ball. He's instinctive when it comes to run plays and stuff like that. And then you get into the passing game and it gets a little bit scary. So my
Yeah.
advice for the Chicago Bears: get Noah Sewell in the weight room and turn him into an edge rusher. Because it to me, when you have that type of speed and that type of explosiveness going towards the ball, and you're built pretty damn big, for a linebacker. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to put yourself in a position where you're relying on him in coverage. We saw what Khalil Mack did in coverage, and it pissed us all off. Okay,
Oh, it
so we don't
wasn't
want to see
good.
that again. So I think they will be smart into making him into a situational pass rusher. And if he excels there, perfect. But at least you have versatility there.
And here's the thing, because I wanted to see my favorite pick, honestly, was Noah Sewell. I mean, people were surprised when he came back last year, right? He went from being a first round grade last year to a fifth round pick. And it was
Yeah,
not that he played bad this year. He was not
injuries.
bad this year. He was still relatively productive. The pass rush was atrocious last year. A safety had the most sacks on the team for the Bears. That's inexcusable. I don't care. I
Yeah,
genuinely I don't care. It's inexcusable to have a safety lead your team in sacks. I think he steps in from day one, and you're going to be seeing a lot of him on the football field. And I love that pick so much.
yeah,
So, and then least favorite, honestly, from what I've read, Dexter.
yeah.
And just I'm still excited for him. There's genuinely not a player in this draft class I hate. Usually that
Yeah.
with Ryan Pace, that had happened a lot.
Oh,
We
100%.
could let's just say this. There were no Adam Shaheens in this draft class.
Yes.
So that is an automatic win in my book.
Yeah. Perfect way to put it.
And it looks like we're past those days for the foreseeable future. So there are no complaints here. on my end. And I also want to mention real quick, Travis Bell, 7th round pick out of Kennesaw State. I don't know what to expect out of him. Uh, but I mean, he dominated at the combine. I mean, as a defensive tackle, I mean, put up 30 reps on the bench press. I'm pretty sure he had like a 30 mid 30s vertical, and he's 6 foot 320 pounds or something like that. I don't expect anything, but for a 7th round pick, I like it.
And by all accounts, Ryan Poles loves this guy.
Yeah.
He loves him. So I mean, if he's that enamored with him, they're gonna give him more than a fair shot. And you know what? Screw it. Why not? Why not? But one thing I want to say before we go, I feel like a lot of people have been very upset with the lack of addressing the center position.
Mhm.
And I want to assess that real quick because Cody Whitehair was not very good last year.
Nope.
He's a veteran that, he's been solid for a very long time, but I think age has caught up to him.
Mhm.
But Lucas Patrick is still on the roster. And I know he didn't have a great season last year, but I do think that when he actually was able to play his actual position, he didn't get a chance to actually show. He
Yeah.
got injured in the first game that they shuffled the offensive line, and we really didn't get to see like how he could actually be. And what one name that people forgot because he was injured last year, he got injured in preseason. We need to give Doug Kramer a chance. If he has
Yeah, I mean,
nothing, that it's okay. It's okay. You have two guys on the roster that can fill that role. But I do think they see Doug Kramer as that rookie
mhm.
center to try out because at the end of the day, I don't think there was ever a scenario where Cody Whitehair was not going to be the center. There's going to be competition between Whitehair and Patrick because they're I guess you could say they're serviceable starters. They're not an ideal starter for your football team, but they're serviceable. So I think the one thing I would like, and I think a lot of fans should be more open to, is a potential competition at center.
Mhm.
And you see who's the best at that position, and you go for it. And at the end of the day, it worked out because people can say what they want about Braxton Jones, but he's going to be a starter on this team next year, and there's nobody that expected for him to be a starter. Nobody. And look, he's about to be his second year protecting Justin Fields' blindside. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
You said it better than I could have, Brandon. So, with that, we're going to wrap up the show. We will be back next week. Back to more of our spring cadence, most likely, with a little bit of Bears talk, but we're going to be sprinkling a lot more baseball from this point forward up until training camp starts.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to the show. If you've made it this far, we genuinely appreciate it, and we will see you next time.